Hi everyone, thank you for watching today's class. So we are broadcasting again like from Yamato headquarters in Kagawa, Japan. My name is Akira. I'm your host for this class, and this is Megumi. So she's been like with us like for several years, like working with different customers like in different countries, but mainly like North America and Europe. And she's making Mazemen noodles like from scratch in a noodle machine today, and we're doing so Mazemen noodles, like which is the newest ramen, newest type of ramen in Japan, and that's been like really popular in Japan, and so we are really excited to talk about it. And so let's get into the lecture first, and then like we're gonna make noodles like from scratch in a noodle machine, and after that we're gonna go to the kitchen, and then we're gonna do a couple of like Mazemen dishes. Okay. So let's start talking about Mazemen. But before we get into Mazemen, because some of you like don't know who you are, like what we do, let me just briefly introduce ourselves, Yamato. So we Yamato, like we make noodle machines, that are designed for restaurants, small production, and we are 45 years old. Like we are like in this business like for 45 years. And we also ran noodle schools for about like 20 years on ramen, udon, and soba. So we have a school here in Kagawa too, but like we have another school that's in Tokyo, and we have another one in Singapore. And so this is a picture of Kagawa Prefecture, where we are headquartered. And we have customers using our machines in 61 countries, and we have 8 offices in Japan. We have an office in Seoul, Korea. We have one in Singapore, Netherlands, the United States. We have partners in different countries. And so we basically like help customers develop, noodle products and help them like, support them like in different ways to help succeed in their businesses, like using noodles basically. So if you are interested in like doing some business with noodles, or like if you want to improve the current products, please feel free to like contact us later from our website or by sending us emails. So let's get into this today's class on Mazemen. So Mazemen, I'm going to talk about what it is and why it's so great, and what's important for good Mazemen dish. And I'm going to talk about ingredients and the customization. And Megumi is going to make Mazemen noodles from scratch in the ramen machine we have here. And we're going to move to the kitchen, and we have an instructor waiting to show us a few examples of Mazemen dishes. And lastly, we are going to do FAQ sessions. So please send us if you have any questions, please send us them like in the comments. So let's start talking about Mazemen. And to talk about Mazemen, I have to like explain evolution of ramen. The evolution of ramen is how the way of eating a bowl of ramen evolved, and it got easier and easier. The first ramen we had in Japan is soup noodle dish with stock made of pork, chicken, like seafood that's seasoned with tare or base sauce, shoyu shio or miso or flavored oil. Then came sukeme, a dipping noodle dish. The cooked noodles are served with a bowl with dense soup that's strong in flavor. And we had mazemen or aemen, which is basically cooked noodles started with special sauce and toppings. So mazemen is the newest type of ramen. It's been booming as there are many ways it is attractive to both consumers and restaurants. It's so addictive that there are so many hardcore fans. Maze basically means mix or stir in Japanese, and men means noodles. So it is stirred or mixed noodle dish. Because cooked noodles are served with small amount of sauce or oil and toppings, it's a very simple noodle dish. People enjoy the noodles for its texture, flavors, and it's very filling. There are several major types of mazemen, such as Taiwan-style maze soba, braised soba, soupless tantan men, and others like Chinese lo men and Korean yeoja men, etc. What they have in common is that the noodles have good noodle texture, which people enjoy. So the noodle texture is the life of Mazemen. Abura soba may be the oldest type of mazemen, which was probably started by some shops near universities in Kanto area around 1955. The sauce, typically sesame oil, shoyu-based sauce, is placed at the bottom of a bowl with cooked noodles. People add vinegar and or chili oil and stir everything and munch the noodles. Because it was initially served to college students, the amount of noodles was big, making a lot of fans among students. Maze soba is the another type of mazemen. The most famous one is called Taiwan maze soba, which was developed in Nagoya City around 2008. It's like abura soba, but noodles are thicker and already covered in sauce with toppings, seasoned ground meat, chopped Chinese chives, green onions, fish powder, ground garlic, fresh egg yolk, and others. Everything is started well when eating it. This maze soba quickly became popular throughout Japan. Basically, the difference between abura soba and the maze soba. Abura soba is simpler with an aim to let the customers enjoy the noodles, and toppings are usually limited to a few types: chashu, menma, chopped green onions, nori, and others. Maze soba usually offers many types of toppings that are seasoned or not, and different tastes and flavor from sauces that are made other than shoyu-based flavored oils that are found in the abura soba. Microsoft offers changes in taste and flavors by allowing customers to add different condiments, toppings, and seasonings. For example, fish roll, cheese, kimchi, and etc. Some dishes call for a separate bowl of stock that's added to the bowl to change the taste after going halfway through. Another major type of maze soba is soupless tantan men that may be categorized into three types, according to famous food magazine in Japan. Tokyo style that features Chinese sesame paste with dry shrimp flavors. Chengdu style is the name of Chinese city where the original tantame was born. That features a mix of Chinese spices such as Sichuan pepper, chili, and others that bring hotness and tingling sensations to the tongue. The third is Hiroshima style that features chopped up green onions, warm sauce, seasoned ground meat, and soft-boiled egg with noodles that are relatively thin. I'm sorry, this is so these are the pictures of these three types. And of course, the noodle texture is the life of mazemen, but like because the noodles are covered, drenched in sauce and toppings, and eaten as a whole, it's probably the balance or integrated taste and flavors of noodles, sauce, and toppings when they're mixed together. So noodles are typically like firm, filling, relatively thick, firm, and chewy. Sauce, soy sauce based with some oil like sesame oil, typically. Toppings, stir-fried ground meat with seasoning. Yeah, as an option, like customers have like vinegar, add vinegar and chili oils. So what is great about like offering mazame is that like it is very easy to customize it. Noodles can be different in sizes, textures, ingredients, and flavors. You can even serve different noodles than ramen, such as soba, udon, and other types. You can have a gluten-free option too. For the sauces, there's different types of tare oils, spices, Asian, Indian, etc. Stocks made from animal, seafood types of ingredients. Refreshing sauces made from citrus and other ingredients, vinegar, chili oils, etc. as additional sauces. And toppings, you can have like protein, meat, seafood, beans, cheese, etc., which can be pre-seasoned or cooked. Vegetables, leafy onions, avocados, etc. Fruits like oranges, kiwis like apples, tomatoes, etc. And herbs like cilantro, basil, mint, garlic, and ginger. As an option, customers can order a portion of steamed rice, which can be various types of rices like or quinoa or like other things. And customers can add it to the remaining sauce after the noodles are gone to finish the dish. It is carbohydrate after carbohydrate, but it happens a lot in Japan. Mazemen gives customers a lot more freedom than other types of ramen dishes by offering many options to change the tastes and flavors. So basically, the noodles take a big part in like mazemen dish. So like in noodles, especially like so noodle texture is very important. It's a life of mazemen dish. So let's start talking about what types of noodles are good for mazemen noodles. So I've been like in these like online classes, I've been using this chart a lot, and I'm gonna use it again. And so like let me explain it briefly. It's like horizontal line represents basically a hydration ratio of the noodles. So the higher the more water, the softer the noodle. The vertical line represents the protein content of flour that's used to make these noodles. The higher the protein, the harder the noodle texture. And the right, if you see the right side, from the top to the bottom, like vertically, this is a noodle size. From top, like 1.0 millimeter thin, to the bottom, 5.0 millimeter, pretty thick. And in the last class we did the tonkotsu noodles, and then that's like green circle, like which says Hakata ramen noodles, and that's low in hydration ratio and high in protein content of flour, and it's thin, 1.1 millimeter, 1.3 millimeter, so it's thin and hard noodle. And in the other class, we did the tsukemen noodle, like dipping noodles. That's high in hydration ratio, but like low in protein content of flour. So this is soft noodle, but like it's thick, 1.5 millimeter, like 3.0 millimeter. So it's thick and soft noodles. So it's either like thin and hard or like thick and soft. And for Mazemen, like there are many variations, and but like typically like many types of Mazemen are typically thick and thick and soft, and they're very chewy. So it's kind of similar to tsukemen noodle texture, and in fact, like there are many ramen shops that like specialize in serving tsukemen and abura soba or like other types of like Mazemen. So let's start talking about ingredients. So one thing to remember, like to take away from this class, is that you need to like remember these three ingredients: like flour, water, kanshi. These three things, if you have them, you can make ramen noodles. So the flour is, we talked about from the chart, right? The protein of flour determines the hardness of noodles, and we said that like so thick, the mazemen is thin. I mean, the typically thick, right? So it should be like soft. So the protein content should be around like it depends on like what kind of mazemen noodles we're making, but like from like maybe like 8 to like maybe like 11% ish, and then sometimes like we blend the flour that has like higher protein content with flour with like lower protein content to bring out like kind of unique texture. And so protein around like 8 to like 11% or so, depending on the size of the noodle you're making. And ash content is how much minerals is contained in the flour, wheat flour. And the higher the ash, the darker the color, and the stronger the flavor of the wheat. And in case like mazemen, because like mazemen, like noodles are like basically like drenched in sauce, right? So, maybe like people probably wouldn't like care so much about the color. So, uh, you can probably use the flour that has like higher ash content to bring out the strong wheat flavor. Viscosity, so this is basically like how elastic the noodle becomes. And in case of mazemen, that's higher the better, higher more elastic, like kind of the chewier. And so, but like this value is not shown in the product label, so you have to measure it. And then on a machine, and we have this machine like our headquarters. So if you have some flowers that you want to test for the value, then you can send it to us and we can check it for you. It's free of charge. So three things: protein, ash, viscosity. These three things you should have in mind like when trying to find a good flour for mazemen noodles. So water hydration that we talked about like in that chart. Um, Basically, this picture shows the dough that's from like low hydration to like high hydration, and we always said that like lower The harder, the higher, the softer. So like for Mazemen noodle, like it's like between like maybe like around like medium to high hydration ratio. So what the hydration 30% hydration ratio means is that like so like if you have like 10 kilograms of flour, you're adding like 3 kilograms of water to it in the mixing. So in total, you're getting like 13 kilograms of dough, and so that's what the like 30% hydration ratio means. And basically, the higher the hydration ratio, the shorter the mixing time, and a lower the hydration ratio, the longer the mixing time. Like, the more water, the shorter. I mean, shorter you need to mix. Another thing I just want to touch on about like water is that like we usually use soft water when cooking noodles and stocks. Because like when you're cooking noodles, the country salt and other things like in these ingredients need to be like released to the cooking water. Instead, the noodle gets water from cooking water. But when you're cooking the noodles in hot water, that contains a lot of minerals like magnesium, like calcium. So there's less room for these ingredients to be released to. So it takes time. And if you cook the noodles like for that long time, then the surface noodle melts, which is bad for the noodle texture. And then you lose noodles, like basically noodles, some of the noodles like dissolve in the cooking water, so you losing it. So the cooking yield is not good. And if you cook the noodles, same noodles like for, maybe like 2 more minutes, then, you're spending more money on gas and labor. And then if you look at it for a long time, right? Then, you can imagine like how much more money you have to spend on the gas and labor by working with hard water. So like if you have to work with hard water, then you should use the softener, water softener, which is like really inexpensive to install in a restaurant. So that's water and kanshi. So kanshi is something that you have to have in your noodles. We call ramen noodles. And there are many types of kanshi that are used. But like for noodles that are like expected to be consumed like within a week or two, it's basically a combination of potassium carbonate and sodium carbonate. Potassium carbonate, what it does, hardens the noodle texture, changes the noodle color to yellow, and it has a stronger crunchy smell. And sodium carbonate has exactly opposite characteristics. It softens it. And then we blend them in different ratios for different sizes of noodles. And remember the chart, right? So basically, Mazemen typically thick noodles. So for thick noodles, we want to make it softer. So we want to increase the amount of sodium carbonate to make them softer. So for the calcium that we use for Mazemen is probably um, higher in like sodium carbonate. Yeah, other ingredients we use for ramen noodles, like of course salt. Salt is sometimes used to add like salty taste to the noodles. And eggs. There are two types of eggs we use: egg white, egg whole eggs. Egg white hardens the noodle texture, and then it kind of helps. Remember, like in the last class when we did the tonkotsu ramen, we used the egg white to kind of keep because the tonkotsu noodle is like thin, so to retain the texture, we want to use the bit of egg white to keep the noodles from getting soggy fast in the hot soup. Whole egg, we just use it to add eggy flavor and make it a bit yellow. To make it that yellow, like you need to use the pigment, like coloring agent. Gluten is, we used it in the tonkotsu ramen noodles, the last class, and I think this like makes the noodle harder. They kind of, make it kind of crunchier. So we added to the Hakata style ramen noodles. Coloring, flavoring ingredients like spinach, squid to make it black, chili to make it red, or rather orange, grain flour, the types like whole wheat, rye, etc., to make your noodles like healthier. Okay, let's start talking about like production processes, and then Remember, like Mazemen is like very important. I mean, the noodle texture is very important in Mazemen dish. So to make very good noodle texture, you have to have like a strong foundation. And this slide is all about building a strong foundation in the dough, and that means like building a strong gluten structure. And the most important process on this slide is, of course, like weighing of ingredients, the right ratios. So we weigh everything by weight because it's more precise than like measuring things by volume. So we go by like we weigh by everything by grams, like kilograms, like a pound. And if you screw this up, then the rest of the process like wouldn't matter. And because of the consistency, the quality, so we want to make same thing over and over. And mixing process was very important. Then what's happening in the mixing process, and then the purpose of mixing is a good hydration of the dough. And the what's happening in the mixing process is that each flour grain gradually come together to form like kind of crumbles of dough as it's mixed with the liquid. It's called like agitation graduation process. So this is what we want to happen in the mixing process. And our noodle making machine has a mixer that rotates at 60 rotations per minute, which is the ideal mixing speed for noodle dough. And to further develop the gluten structure inside the dough, we need to like rest the dough. So after mixing, we put the dough in a plastic bag and rest it at room temperature for like an hour. This is and then you see the image like a web-like sort of gluten structure that's being developed during the resting process. Rough forming, combining, resting, second rest, like for the rest of the process, like I'm going to talk about like when we actually make noodles. So after we make complete the noodle, I mean dough, all we have to do is just thin it to the final thickness, and then cut it and portion it, and then rest the noodles, and rest the noodles. So like put them in the refrigerator for a few days. Make sure that the noodles are covered and so that they're not being dried. But like the noodles during refrigerator, like in the refrigerator, noodles lose moisture and become translucent, like so that the texture gets tighter. So it's for better texture. And then we cook them. When we cook them, especially so Mazemen noodles are very good for the takeout item as a takeout item. So cooking, if you cook them and then put them in a container and then like give them to the customers, then you need to remember this. Like so, noodles need to be like gelatinized. So gelatinization is a starch of noodles take up liquid and swell up on heating and become clear gel-like texture. The condition that you can see this picture. And after you cook them, and then the noodles, and then, like if the noodles are not gelatinized, right? I mean, the noodles are still raw. So, and then after you cook them, maybe and then you should chill them, because if you don't chill them, then the noodles are still, still keep cooking, so that you lose texture, right? So it's you should chill them like if you're giving them to the customer. And uh, so this slide like kind of like explains how noodles get cooked and soggy. And this is a cross section of noodles. And so when you cook noodles, the water penetrates like from the sides, the cut surface, and then it gets cooked, but like has like this core, right? Core. So it's kind of like al dente kind of like texture. Yeah, still has some core, so that it still has some bite to it. But like the penetration, like kind of penetration in water, like um, continues, right? And then like the section where that that's like still raw disappears and then gets soggy, and so that's how the noodles get soggy. So by changing cooking time and estimating how long noodles stay in soup, hot or cold, and noodle size, ingredients, and hydration ratio should be adjusted to control the noodle texture your customers experience. So, it's important to like kind of, I mean, because this, we are talking Mazemen here, so especially noodle texture is important for Mazemen, and so you need to calculate how the noodle texture will be when customers actually eat them. Before we start making noodles from scratch, like I just want to talk a bit about kind of benefits of like doing homemade noodles. So if you're a restaurant, you have two options, buy noodles, making noodles. And if you buy noodles, right, typically the price of like one portion of noodles like be like 50 cents in US dollars. Maybe like in case of Mazemen, like it's a bit more because the portion size is usually bigger than the regular ramen noodles. But and if you make noodles, and the cost of like making one portion of noodles is typically like around 20 cents in US dollars, like including labor, ingredients, and utility fees. So you're looking at like 50 to 60% is saving. And if you sell more, of course you save more, right? And if you look at it like in a month, and if you look in a year, you save, you make big savings. Other benefits like homemade noodles, was like you can make better noodles at lower cost than if you buy noodles, and you have total control of the quality and what you can produce. You can provide more values to the customers, and of course, um, we have a lot of ramen shops that specialize in serving tsukemen and mazemen, and typically what they have is that like they are offering the customers different portion sizes for the same price. So or the customers can order like after they finish the initial portion of serving, they can order like additional portion of noodles like for free of charge. They can do this because the cost of making noodles, they make noodles themselves, and the cost of making them, cost of offering it, is very very low. So that's why they can do it. So and then but like customers that can appreciate it, that's how they you maybe like capture the heart of customers. Unique products, you can make unique products. You can make you can change the what you can put in them. Like you can change the color of the flavor of the noodles, and that helps like you stand out from other shops. And being unique is very important to uh, to have kind of repeating customers. And they can show your customers how you make noodles from scratch. And I think this is very important too because it gives your customers kind of sense of food safety, and like it entertains their customers. Like the customer is very curious, like as to like how you make noodles. So that's is very important too. And this is a typical setup like of noodle making room, and you can make up to like 100 portions of fresh noodles from scratch in an hour in this setup. And then as you can see, the space, it doesn't take up much space. Um, Before we start making noodles from, I just want to just talk a little bit about on this topic, and then so doing this kind of online class is great, but like we typically when we do this kind of class in real, we of course like we try let our customers try let the attendees try what we make during the class, noodles and the soups and everything. Um, because like that's part of like understanding and experiencing like these kind of class gifts, right? So, but of course like being online, it's very hard to like provide that. But we want to try our best to make them available to you. So if any of you are like interested, please contact us. And if you live nearby the following locations: Singapore, New York, Amsterdam, Seoul, please let us know. Then we'll try our best to make them available to you. So please let us know. Okay, so let's start making noodles for Mazemen dishes. Yes, so let's start making them, and then so let me explain the ingredients. So this is the flour, wheat flour, and I think it's around like 10 point some percentage, like in protein content. And this is water. It's water, right? And this is salt, currency. So salt and currency, like each like 1% of the weight of flour. And then this is 36% hydration ratio, 36% to the weight of flour. So salt and currency are going to be dissolved in the water. So you have to count them as 2% of the hydration ratio. So like the actual amount of water is just 34%. Okay, so let's start. First with the mixing. Um, so this is a noodle making machine that we have. This is the smallest one. Actually, this is a CE certified version, and it has 10 kilograms mixer. 10 kilograms mixer and means that like you can mix up to 10 kilograms of solid ingredients like flour and other things. And on top of that, you are adding liquid. So at maximum, you can do up to like 14 kilograms of dough. And yes, and then but like minimum batch is 4 kilograms. So we are doing 4 this class. And so she's dissolving the currency and salt to the water to make this liquid. And you may be able to see some small holes in this lid. And we want to add this liquid directly onto the this mixer lid, so that this liquid is dripped through the holes to be added to the flour inside the mixer. And because we want to add liquid a little by little to the flour to have like good hydration. So if you like add like all the liquid at once, then it's we don't have like we don't be able to like do good hydration with the dough. So that's why we need to add the liquid little by little. And the total mixing time is like 10 minutes, but like we can wait for 10 minutes just looking at it. So she prepared the dough. Remember the resting process? This is the first resting process. So we put the dough in a plastic bag and then let it sit for an hour at room temperature. So the first thing we do like after this is to make rough sheet of dough. So rough sheet of dough. So this machine has one set of rollers. So like there are 2 rollers, and then you can adjust the roller gap. And so the dough is going through the roller gap to be sort of like sheeted. So this crumbles dough like turns into sheet dough, and you can adjust the roller gap with this handle. Um, so first initial roller gap, like we said, is like 1.5 millimeter. And this is a 36% hydration ratio. So the dough crumbles, like the size of the crumbles is not that big. So that's why we set the roller gap like 1.5 millimeter. But like if you're doing like 40% hydration ratio, the crumbles are bigger. So we need to widen the roller gap to let the dough through the roller gap. And it's going like really slow first because we want to apply like really good pressure on the dough and to kind of develop the gluten structure inside dough. So we need to like keep feeding it, and then so she put the roll of like dough like against the roller that's rotating, and so the dough like kind of winds by itself automatically. So we talked about the noodle texture and this hydration ratio, medium hydration ratio gives somewhat firm, but like chewy at the same time. And then uh, this hydration ratio usually usually do it for such ramen noodles as like kind of Tokyo style, like shoyu ramen, um, like Hokkaido, Sapporo ramen, like miso ramen, usually curly. Maybe like basically it's standard ramen, standard hydration ratio. The last class we did the tonkotsu ramen noodles, and then that was categorized as low hydration ratio noodles, and the hydration ratio is between like 25% to like 29%, and uh, the dough is like crumbles are like a lot smaller, and the roller gap we set is 1 millimeter, so we need to like pass this like dough through a lot smaller clearance to make a sheet of dough. So after 4 minutes, we add the rest of the water and mix it for 6 more minutes. So the total mixing time is 10 minutes. So after what we call like rough forming, so this dough is like still pretty fragile. It's easy to break. So we need to make it firm, stronger. So what we do is that like we separate it into two sheets, two separate sheets, right? And then roughly half, and then combine them through the roller gap into one. It's like we are, compounding the two separate sheets into one to make it firm. And that was 1.5 millimeter in thickness, and then each sheet is 1.5 millimeter in thickness, and so the dough thickness that's going through the roller right now is supposed to be 3 millimeter, 1.5 plus 1.5, the 3 millimeter equivalent of dough is going through, and but we want to, we don't want to like thin it like drastically because like that would like damage the gluten structure inside dough. So we want to like gradually thin it. So this is the rule, like thinning it, and how much we should thin it at the time, right? Is that like it's 70%, 70%. So that's 3 millimeter equivalent of dough like going through. So 3 times 70%, like zero point 0.7, is 2.1. So like to make it simple, like we set the roller gap to 2.0 millimeter. So every time like we do every round of like rolling thinning, we reduce the roller gap by 70% to sort of like to protect the gluten structure. And again, like we are going slow to apply good pressure in the dough. And after the first combining process, I think dough is like pretty firm, but like we want to make sure to and then do it one more time, one more combining process. So the each dough sheet now is like should be 2 millimeter in thickness, and so we are separating it into two and combine them. And so 2 plus 2, 4, 4 times 0.7, 70%, 2.8. But you want to make it simple, so we rounded up to 3 millimeter. So the dough that's coming out has actually very smooth texture, smooth surface after combining process. And then after the second combining process, because because it's a relatively high hydration ratio, like kind of wet, sticky. So to keep it like from sticking, you want to dust it. You want to dust it, and so it's automatic duster that this machine has, and you can control the amount of dusting, and for high hydration ratio noodles, like you should dust more. But like for low hydration ratio, like tonkotsu noodles that we did in last class, you don't probably even have to dust it because it's too because it's dry enough. So after the second combined process, so like all we had to do is just thin it to the final thickness. So that was 3 millimeter that is dough just went through, and then so three times 0.7, 2.1, but I make it simple, 2.0. And from this point on, we can go faster because the gluten structure is complete. So we can speed up the rolling, sheeting, and so that was 2 millimeter, and we're going to thin it again, and 2 times 0.7, that's 1.4, but want to make it 1.5. But like before we do that, we want to measure the actual thickness. That's 2.8, 2.8. And so after it's going through like 2 millimeter roller gap, like it's actually there's like a 0.8 millimeter difference between the actual thickness and the roller gap. And it's because it's dough, and dough like is actually 2 millimeter, but like after it's gone through the roller gap, the dough expands back. So there's always difference between the actual thickness dough and a roller gap we set. So that's why before we cut it to reach the final the right size in terms like what I mean by right size is that thickness and width. So width is determined by the cutter we use. The thickness is determined by this the roller gap, and the actual thickness expands, like it's always bigger than the roller gap, and we don't know how much the difference is. So we need to measure the thickness before we cut it to get the right size. And then noodle size is very important when it comes to like noodle texture. You need to have like right noodle size, thickness, and width to have like ideal noodle texture. And so after it's going from 1.5, it's 2.1, 2.2-ish. And so the difference is at 0.6, 0.7. And the final thickness we want is 1.7. So we set the roller gap to 1.1 so that we expect the actual thickness to expand back by 1.6 millimeter. So that final thickness should be 1.7 millimeter. And then this is the kind of cutter we use, and this is this kind of like paper shredder, and like the dough goes through like to the middle, and then comes out as noodle strands. So the width of noodle is determined by the cutter. It's fixed. The thickness is determined by the roller gap. So we set the conveyor belt and set the cutter, and we're gonna cut it. And we want to dust them. That's the noodles when they come out. So we set the duster there. Okay, let's start cutting. And this machine can automatically portion it. And how it portions it is that like length of noodle. So the longer the length, the bigger the portion. Shorter length, like smaller portion. And Mazemen noodles typically, because the soup is very little. I mean, really small amount. So the shops usually like kind of compensate that with the bigger portion of noodles. So typically, the Mazemen dish has bigger serving portion, and maybe like 150 grams, like 160 grams, and I mean some crazy shops like have like 200 grams per portion to start with. That's a regular size, and then that's before cooked, like so that's weight of like fresh noodles, and then after it's cooked, it's like 1.5, 1.6 times bigger in like the weight. So it's a lot of noodles actually when you eat at like a Mazemen shop. So it's very easy to make Mazemen noodles on this machine, and then it's very easy to portion it. All right, so that's how Mazemen noodles are made from scratch, and so that's that. And then this was just 2 kilograms batch. So like we just use like 2 kilograms of flour just for sort of like a demonstration purpose. And so like out of like 2 kilograms of flour with the like 36% of like liquid, we get maybe like 18, like 16 portions, like 18 portions servings noodles. Because like Mazemen noodles are like usually the serving size is bigger than regular ramen noodles. So if you, yeah, in this machine, you can make up to like maybe like 14 kilograms dough. So out of 14 kilograms dough, if the serving size is 150 or something, then you probably get like around like 90 servings or something out of 10 kilograms of flour. All right, so we are going to the kitchen. So, so it's a kitchen, and um, so this is where we have like sort of like cooking sessions, and Um, so we have like noodle cookers, like a lot of sinks, and like we can take up to like 8 people at a time because we believe in like one-on-one session so that each student can make his or her own recipes from scratch. Of course, we teach everything like production of noodles, like soups, toppings, and everything like even menu development, even like management operation of noodle restaurants. But so that's why like we believe like one-on-one session, one-to-one teaching, so that students can get most out of from this class. And see these induction cookers, like it's a big induction cookers. So each induction cooker is cooking different ingredients, individual like in different pots. And so like one maybe like cooking, beef bones or something like pork backbone, pork head, and chicken, whole chicken or something. So we make like these different types of like stocks like from scratch, and then we are gonna make like tare, different types of tare, oils from scratch, and then we combine them to like reach the original like unique recipes. So this is, and then like student can like take home like his or her own like sets of like complete recipes, and then because like this is a that you have like other students working with you, so you can share some knowledge like recipes with other people. So this is very good the course that we offer. Like we've been doing that for like 20 years. And so for those like who are interested, like please let us know. And because of these situations with COVID-19, like it's very difficult for other people like from overseas to come to school. But like hopefully like it's gonna be eased, and you guys are gonna be able to like come out to our class pretty soon. And so now we have our chief instructor of the school, Mr. Ikeda, and he has background in Chinese cuisine. It's very similar to ramen, and we're lucky to have him like kind of to teach us a few examples of a Mazemen dishes. So thank you, Mr. Ikeda. So I'm basically like translating what he says.
はい。じゃあ、2種類の混ぜ麺を今から作っていきます。
So we're gonna make like 2 types of mazemen today.
一つは日本でいう一般的な、混ぜ麺ですね。
So one of them is it's like kind of typical mazemen that we do, what we have in Japan.
でもう一つが、動物系を全く使わない、ヴィーガン用ということで、野菜を中心とした混ぜ麺を作っています。
And another type is that like the one that doesn't use like any types of like animal types of ingredients. Like that's like kind of like vegan, kind of vegetarian type. So let's see the ingredients.
では、まず麺の方から。
Okay, so first let me explain the noodles.
今から麺を茹でていくんですが、茹でた後ですね、工程として2つのパターンがあります。
So when we like cook noodles, there are 2 patterns of like kind of processes what we do.
茹でた後ですね、洗わずに茹でたものをそのままタレと和える形と、茹でた後に水でしっかり締めてからですね、もう一度温め直すという、2つのパターンがあります。
So one pattern is that like we cook the noodles, and then but we don't wash it. We don't wash it. Like we just drench the noodles in the sauce. Like another pattern is like we cook the noodles and then like wash them to get rid of starch, and then warm the noodles and then cover them with the sauce.
で洗わずにそのまま和えた方が、表面のぬめりとかが入りますので、ちょっとソースにとろみがついて、独特のもちもち感ですね、が出ます。
So like if you don't do if you do the first pattern, like without washing it, without washing noodles, because it has like some starch that's still remaining in the noodles. The starch like kind of being sticky, kind of like mixed with the like sauce, and then kind of the entire sauce would be like kind of sticky, so like kind of bringing out like a bit of like kind of umami. to the whole dish.
で洗う場合はですね、表面のぬめりが落ちて、で、まあ、麺が締まるので、ちょっともちもち感、プリプリ感ですね、しっかりとした状態と、あとは麺の、表面のぬめりが取れるので、比較的さらっと、まあ、食べやすい仕上がりになります。
So if you go with the like second pattern, like washing the noodles, so we getting rid of like all the starch, so it gives like kind of like firmer texture, and then it has the like sort of like the whole dish should be like has like kind of clean taste and flavor.
今日は持ち帰りを想定して作りますので、洗った方が麺質がしっかりしますので、今日は茹でた後にしっかり洗っていきます。
So yeah, we were like making all these two dishes like for takeout today, so we are washing the noodles.
今から2分ですね。
So we cook them for 2 minutes.
茹でている間に具材の方の紹介。
So while the noodles are being cooked, let me explain the
今回です
toppings.
ね、食材がネギ、ニラ、
Scallions, Chinese chives.
あとはこちら、豚のひき肉を炒めたものですね。
So that's pork minced meat, like that's cooked, seasoned,
で、海苔、
nori,
あとは魚粉ですね。
and then that's fish powder,
で、ここは生卵ですね。今回は黄身だけ使用します。
and that's raw egg. And then we just use the yolk.
できるだけすぐ食べてもらうというのを想定していますので、生卵を使用していますが、時間がかかる場合ですね、生卵は衛生的な問題もありますので、使わない方がいいです。
So we are, so we are kind of, thinking of like, customers like eating it kind of fast, like, but like for takeout, fresh egg is not really a good choice. So, but so you might want to just skip it.
あとですね、こちらにお皿と、あとタレですね、はい、醤油ベースになります。
So that's take a container, and then we have a container for like tare. That's based in like a shoyu based tare.
すぐ召し上がっていただくのであれば、さっき麺とタレと一緒に合わせてしまってから盛り付けていただいても結構です。
And so like if you kind of if you expect the customers to like eat it like right away, then you may want to cover the noodles with tare before you serve them to customers.
こちらが香味油ですね。
And that's flavored oil.
今回はサラダ油やごま油、ニンニクとかネギとか香り付けてます。
And then the flavored oils are made like using vegetable oil like sesame oil, and then using like that's garlic and other things like infused.
目が上がります。
So noodles are cooked, and I'm washing it. So after we wash it, right, we want to warm the noodles.
温め直したものを、タレと、油ですね、に混ぜて、どんどん持っていきます。
And after we wash it, we want to mix it like with in the sauce, and then the oil, and then top it. So in this case, we'll add tare to like mixing the tare too, and then warming the noodles, reheating it. So we are sort of like just increasing the temperature of noodles. So like we don't warm it like for a long time. Just and then make sure to drain the water as much as you can. Otherwise, that's going to dilute the sauce. And just start welling the sauce. As nori, That's Chinese chai. And green onions. And then ground pork. And fish powder on the side. Then we'll put the yolk. In the center. So, so this is how you put together one like traditional Mazemen Soba, and then so this is a typical like sort of like Taiwan Mazemen Soba that we talked about in the lecture. So it's very easy and it's very great. I mean, it's very good for takeout. So next, so the next one we're gonna use the this green colored noodles. The cooking time is the same, 2 minutes. So after cooking, we're gonna wash them as well. Let me explain the ingredients, the toppings. And for this one, tomato, and the onions. And that's lotus root, like kind of thinly sliced and then fried. And then yellow pepper. And then that's the beef sprouts. こちらはですね、こちらの肉と同じような形で模して作ってるんですけども、こちらは豆腐を使って、作ったそぼろです。So that's the crumbled like tofu kind of stir fried tofu that's kind of in substitute for the ground pork. この麺を仕上げた後、一度簡単な作り方をご紹介します。And I'm going to explain how we made it later after we do this dish. で、こちらもですね、同じようにタレですね。で、コーヒーは同じものを使用しています。こちら動物系のものを使用しておりませんので、同じものを使って仕上げます。So the same tare and then like same flavored oil because like we didn't use any of the animal type ingredients in the flavor oil. So putting the flavor oil in the bowl and then tare because it's takeout, so we're just gonna leave it. So the noodles is done, and I'm gonna wash it. And so like we got rid of like the starch well, and then so we need to strain it as much as you can, and then sorry, like so you just warm it to raise the temperature of the noodle, and then you need to strain it as much as we can. And put the noodles in the bowl and stir it well. so that noodles are coated with flavored oil. So put it in the container. So let's start popping. Waiting. Tomatoes. And tofu on the side. Bean sprouts. Your onions. Just roots. Yellow bell pepper. Okay. So that's how it's put together. Okay, so I want to explain how this tofu topping is made. Tofu, this is a hard tofu. And then I actually like freeze it, froze it, and then defrost it. And then you see this surface of the inside the tofu, like it has like kind of texture like this. After freezing and defrosting it, the texture will be like kind of like meat. And then I want to squeeze the water out as much as we can. And after that, I want to stir fry. So we don't have to put oil in it like when you stir fry it. And then we want to make him brown.
全体的に茶色くなってきたら最後に調味料で味をつけていきます。
So after we stir frying like for a while, and then kind of entire the tofu be like kind of turning brown. Then we gonna start like seasoning it.
ちょっと炒めるから時間がかかるので、ソースの方ですね。今回こちらのソースを 食べていきます。
That's taking a bit while to like kind of stuff. I'm like so, but the sauce that we use for this is this,
で今回こちらがですね、味噌をベースにした作っています。
and this sauce is like made like based on like this the sauce is the miso.
先ほどの豚肉の方は醤油とか、あとお酒、みりんなどで味をつけてるんですけども、どうしても豆腐は肉のような旨味がないので、今回はこちらは味噌を使って旨味の補いということで、はい、作っております。
So the ground pork topping we had is like I actually seasoned it like with the shoyu and sake, mirin, and the sugar. But like it's very difficult like to bring out like kind of like meat like taste and flavor from tofu. So that's why I use the miso.
このように少しずつ跳ねて
And see some of the tofu is kind of popping.
もう少しですね、色が茶色くなるんですね。
And I still like keep like stir frying them like until the tofu like turning more brown.
しっかり炒めた方がよりこう硬さが出て肉らしい食感になるので、炒めが浅いとどうしても豆腐のような食感になってしまうので、できるだけここでしっかりめに炒めてあげてください。
So you should stir fry them well to harden them to have like meat-like texture. So if you can't, the stir frying is if the stir frying is not enough, then the texture will be like kind of tofu-like texture. So you want to make sure each crumbles of the tofu is stir fried well.
では炒まりましたので、調味料を入れていきます。
Okay, so let's start seasoning it. Yeah, so that's how it's done. Second question.
一個だけですけど。
Answer. So like question is like what ingredients are used to make the noodles more chewy and especially elastic? And Mr. Ikeda says that like that you should use like flour with the like lower protein, and you should increase the amount of liquid. So like making higher hydration. So that's what we have for this class. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next class. So thank you so much. Bye. Thank you.